Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start with a warm-up story in which our OP's boss treated him badly and he made him work extra for it. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Should have reported my side of things. Gotcha. I volunteered with a charity for a while, and this story about Crappy Boss, SB, is from 2 years ago. Background. A visiting jerk made a series of unfounded complaints to a useless shift manager. The manager being useless, they decided not to tell me about said complaints and just feed them up to SB. The conversation. SB. Jerk made a series of complaints about you. You need to be better at this, or I'll need to take further action. Me. This is the first time I've heard of it. SB. Jerk spoke to the shift manager and they reported it to me because you didn't have an explanation of it. Me. I was never asked about anything. SB. Well, you should have reported your side of things. Okay. So I'm supposed to somehow know when somebody's going to lie about my professionalism behind my back and report my side of things, while my two direct superiors are not any good at it? Well, I guess I'll have to go above them then. So for the rest of the year, I submitted an incident report anytime something which could have been used against me happened, including when SB suggested they should search me after I asked to record our disciplinary meeting. Not official because they didn't have the authority. The conclusion. Because life sucks, I was temporarily banned from volunteering by SB, who had no power to do so, whilst a regional manager, known for never doing their job, volunteer so can't be sacked, investigated the complaints. I was, of course, cleared of everything once the investigation was passed over to someone else, partially because of all the extra paperwork I did. To my greatest joy, SB superiors got worried because of all the incident reports being submitted from our shifts and kept a close eye on us for months, meaning SB actually had to put in extra hours to avoid being the first manager getting a shut. And our second story. Revenge is a dish best served with spaghetti sauce. In August of 2014, I left my job as a dispatcher to pursue a new position as a buyer for a major food packaging company in their production department. The new company promised it'd be an easy 40-hour work week with occasional OT here and there. Unfortunately for me, I did not get this in writing and took the position as a salaried employee. The first month, everything went well. I worked with some really cool people and was proving I could handle the workload with ease. Well, right around the 1-month mark, the woman that did purchasing for their maintenance department put in her 2-week notice. This was no surprise because everybody knew she was going to school to become an RN. What was a surprise is that I was now expected to learn and perform her job as well. I'd already had a pretty good grasp on the first position and figured taking on the second position would be a good challenge and further prove myself as a valuable employee with maybe an extra hour's work per day. I asked for a 6-month review, which they agreed to. I didn't get it in writing, but it wouldn't matter in the end. Through this company's massive financial success, they never bothered to upgrade their purchasing system for maintenance purposes. There was no inventory system, nor any way to generate a proper purchase order, PO, in the system, so I had to manually type out everything into an Excel spreadsheet, then generate a generic PO in the system. Then I had to track all purchases on a separate document. It was a very cumbersome system that led to me working 12-hour days again. There was no way to track a specific item to any vendor without searching through hundreds of files/POs and hope someone wrote a decent description. At this point, I was relying solely on the memory of the mechanics, most of which had only been there for less than 6 months. Needing to do constant stock checks and asking the mechanics to teach me about some of the processing equipment so I could have some idea of what I was buying, I was not always at my desk. Despite having a radio on my side at all times, the plant manager complained that I was never in my office and I needed to notify him via email or radio every time I walked away with a reason. This included going to the bathroom. I learned the system we used was actually quite versatile, and with a few hours of initial setup, I could build an inventory for the maintenance side in the system and generate clear and trackable POs. Since I was salary, I could come in on a weekend and knock it out. Halfway through my proposal to the plant manager, he cut me off and told me he didn't want to do it. I tried to explain how this would help the company monetarily and time-wise, not to mention the sad sack that got the position after me having to deal with the same BS, but he flat out said no. We're now at the end of November and into the early part of December. The company's rebranding their pasta sauce line and introducing some new recipes. Then I'm given the news that the woman in charge of purchasing all packing materials is taking a 2-week vacation for Christmas. My requested time off for my birthday, the week before Christmas, is being denied because I need to cover her position as well. Why? The purchasing manager has not been trained on how to make a purchase order, so now purchasing anything for the entire plant rested on my shoulders. By this point, I'd already discussed quitting with my girlfriend, and my savings would keep me from putting her in any economic harm for at least 6 months with current spending. When I got to work the day before my birthday, I opened my email to find 16 emails from the overnight crew throwing me under the bus for not ordering a certain part. Before I could get through all of them, the plant manager was in my office explaining that I was underperforming and this couldn't happen again at risk of being fired. I showed him the emails that proved the mechanics lied about when they tried to order the part. His response was, "Just deal with it." I collected my things and walked out the door, past all their offices, which were all empty. Had they been there, I would have stopped to explain. A few days later, in what was the normal payday, I received my typical automatic deposit. It was only for the last full period I worked and did not include the few days I worked into the next period or my accrued vacation time. I'd also not received the check stub, which arrived nearly a week later with the incorrect address. It was delivered to the address on the envelope and then finally made its way to me after being returned to the mail carrier. Before I sent another email asking them to correct the address, I decided to look up state laws on payment upon termination of employment. Oh, was it eye candy? In my state, if someone quits, they must receive all owed payment within 72 hours. For every day late after that, they're to pay the person as if they were still employed. If they pay on day 4, they're to add 1 additional day's pay. Also, any previous agreement of automatic deposit is voided upon the termination of employment unless there's a written agreement at that time. There was also a list of state fines associated with each infraction. I composed my email to HR and explained the laws they were violating. Hopefully they would reply with reason. This would all be settled by the middle of the week, which was December 31st, and also 2 days before the next scheduled payday. Their response the next day stated that I would receive my automatic deposit on Friday since I'd agreed to that upon my initial employment. This time I replied with direct links to the state's website and laws they were violating and stating how simple this would be in court. There was no response until the next day, the deadline I gave them, when FedEx knocked at my door with an envelope containing my check stub, not an active check. There were no deposits into my account until that Friday when the normal payday was scheduled. At this point, I'm actually impressed with their carelessness and oversight in messing with someone who literally has all day to himself. Now is time to make a real request for everything I can legally ask for. The court documents were downloaded and filled out the following Monday, but I was going to give them one last chance. Another email, again detailing the laws and the corresponding sections of their employee handbook, citing these laws and how ignorance of the law is no defense, but explicit knowledge and failure to follow them would not be in their favor. To add a little additional spice, I copied the CEO on this email. I concluded the email requesting resolution by the end of the week or court documents would be filed. An hour later, I received a response from HR that their lawyer would contact me by the end of the week. By that Friday, I had a check for the late payment plus a second check for double the amount if I agreed to not take them to court, which I did agree to. Back to what I alluded to in the beginning, since this was now reported income for the 2015 year, I would need a W-2 from the company in order to file my taxes. On the day I received those checks, I set a reminder to pursue whatever course I could if they failed to do so. My dreams were dashed when my girlfriend sent me a picture of the envelope last night. I even made sure to verify every cent just in case. In the end, I'm happy it didn't resort to that, but I now have a great job/career path, and I don't want to waste any more time on an old employer. And our last story. Marvins bulldozer. Sometime in the early 2000s, there was a small town in Colorado. Among the residents there was a muffler repair shop owner named Marvin. He was sort of a cool guy. I don't know how to describe him. He got along with some people. One day, some company was going to make a concrete plant right next to his shop. Marvin was against the idea, but he was all alone. The construction of the plant would cut off the only entrance to the shop. Marvin tried to get people to sign a petition, but he couldn't get enough people to sign. Marvin decided he was going to make his own entrance to the shop and bought everything he needed to do so. The city denied his request to build a new road. Eventually, the concrete plant cut off Marvin's sewage, and the city fined Marvin for it. This was the last straw. Marvin started constructing a tank out of the materials he got to build a new road to his shop. One of the items was a bulldozer. He designed it so that when the armor was lifted onto the bulldozer, it's not coming off. Marvin got into the bulldozer and lifted the armor onto it. Marvin drove the bulldozer through his shop and into the concrete plant. He goes to the city and destroys buildings of those who wronged him, such as a newspaper place that lied about Marvin, the former mayor's house, and the town hall. The governor of Colorado even considered destroying the bulldozer with Hellfire missiles. The idea was scrapped for obvious reasons. When Marvin was destroying a shop, the radiator was leaking and the bulldozer broke down. Then he was arrested but got his revenge. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.